So that's a super beautiful sound with the rain. It's really lovely. Am I loud enough? Is that loud enough for everybody? Yeah? So when I do these talks, I talk about two things. I talk about non-duality, and I talk about the personal self and how to help and balance the personal self. And I see them as two completely different subjects. Talking about the personal self is like, it's like talking about how to fix a broken arm. I see the personal self as something that's in the body, and it's a character arising, and that character doesn't arrive at non-duality. Non-duality is there prior to the character, prior to everything. But sometimes when the character is suffering a lot and there is a lot of emotional discomfort in the body, it's impossible to talk about non-duality. So we have to address that too. And that doesn't mean that it's a lower subject. I think it's beautiful looking and addressing the personal self and working to expand that personal self. And that expansion of the personal self is infinite, just like knowledge is infinite. A Swami said that to me at the river today, that knowledge is infinite, and I thought that's so beautiful. So there I go saying it too. So that's not a lesser work. I don't mean that to be a lesser work. You've got like the absolute, and then working on the personal self is for the lower students. I still work on my personal self and have personal issues that can come up, and I hope that I always have that feeling to expand the personal self and to work on myself and to be humble with my dynamics and not think that I've arrived anywhere. But then there's this other subject of non-duality that's just wonderful, and I also love talking about that and sharing about it. And I think it's total freedom, non-duality, in the sense that it's a realization of wholeness. It's a realization that there is no separation, that this world isn't a separate world. And that's actually your birthright. That's the birthright, whether the personal self is suffering in pain or in pleasure. It's the birthright of everything. And it's happening right now and is right here. And it's a blessing that we're able to talk about it. Like, what a joy. That it can even be communicated and spoken of and celebrated. And that humans can have this experience of apparently separating from source, only to go back and know source again. So have this complicated thinking, this appearance of a personal self, this ability to distinguish time, and distinguish objects, but then also this deep knowing and expression that it's a world of oneness, of wholeness. That's beautiful. So what is non-duality? I can only talk about how non-duality is seen here. And I think, and I feel, and I hope that non-duality is taught in this way, that there is no way to talk about non-duality. So everybody's expression of it is different. Some might express it with words of love, some with nothingness, some with everything, some with consciousness, some with I amness, some light, some talking about soul even. Like Rumi, when Rumi's translated, it's often used the word soul, some magic, some mystery, some unknowing. And I don't see any as right and I don't see any as wrong. It's the expression of this. It's the beautiful part that non-duality can't become a dogma, it can't become a religion, it can't become a way. There is no way. It's beyond our human mind in that way, but yet it's the birthright of everything. Everything is non-duality. So that which hears my words now is non-duality. So that which is listening is wholeness. That which is speaking is wholeness. That which is hearing is wholeness. That which is feeling is wholeness. So often, once we've identified with the body, which maybe happens at a young age, and we've begun to believe that we are only somebody that's moving in time, that we're a story, a title, a body, an age, we're our past, and we're moving towards the future. When we've totally identified with that, we forget that there is this other part here that's experiencing. And a lot of people call it consciousness, which is a great word to call it, and that makes it easier, I feel, to talk about. So right now there is something that's conscious happening. And that consciousness doesn't come from the past. It's not something you'll find in the future. It's right here. And when I say consciousness, I mean that ability to experience that this is happening. So right now we're conscious that there's a room. We're conscious that there's rain happening. We're conscious that there is these colours and there's the sound of my voice. We're conscious of everything. But that consciousness doesn't belong to anyone. It doesn't belong to you. There is actually also a consciousness of the you. So you, which says, I am conscious and I'm moving through time, and consciousness is arising inside my body and is looking out at the world, that person that's saying all of that is actually being experienced now. So everything that you think about yourself is being experienced. So you might feel that you've done something wrong or done something right, or think that you're going out later, or that your body looks good now or looks bad. And all of that is appearing in consciousness. There's this awake presence that knows all of it, without knowing it in time, without knowing it in the intellect. It knows it innocently. It doesn't judge. It's absolute unconditioned love. It never judged anything. It's there watching the person. It's there watching this room. It's there knowing everything without any effort. You never put any effort into being conscious. You never woke up in the morning and thought, I've got to turn on being conscious. It happened. It's your birthright. It's your most intimate sense of being. When there's the identification with time and the identification with the personality structure and thinking and feelings and emotions, you begin to suffer because you begin to make up lies about yourself. You begin to think you're a limitation, which isn't true. Your essence is limitless. You begin to think that you've done things wrong, or that it's your job to produce things, to make your life, to fix your life, and you begin to stress and worry about time and think it's your job to look after time. And all these false assumptions begin to arise. And what non-duality is pointing back to something that's beyond all your problems, beyond all your worries, beyond all your limitations. It's right here in the instant of everything. And every teaching talks about it in a different way. And it's so beautiful to hear all the different teachings. So I first heard about non-duality in Buddhism. And the first time it was expressed to me was in, you've got to be in the moment. And when they said that, like electricity ran through my body. Like I knew something about this moment. I knew there was a mystery here. I knew there was a magic here. And when they said you've got to be in the moment, there was something that was known. And it's not really that you've got to be in the moment, because who would be in the moment? But at that point, that was all I could hear, was you've got to be in the moment. And that did something. That touched me. I remember after that I was walking down the stairs and my hand touched the balcony, and there was suddenly this intimacy with the balcony. Like that was all there was the feeling of that wood in my fingers. And even though I didn't know anything really about the absolute or what was being talked about on the intellectual level, just them saying you've got to be in the moment, there was a knowing that there's an intimacy, that there's some magic here that I was forgetting, that I knew from childhood, that I knew when I listened to music, I knew when I fell in love, I knew when I enjoyed something. There was a magic here, right now, in this, in mystery, in wonder. And most of my life I was in this sort of narrow world of thinking and time. I was thinking about me, about what I can get out of things, about what else could be here, about what I'd done wrong, about what others had done to me. And what is kind of veiled in a mist of me and my problems and my life and what I needed and what I wanted and what I thought about and my emotional body. Like I was a very emotional person and still am an emotional person, and I was overrun by my emotions. So my emotions my emotions determined my experience. I was more run by my emotions, I think, than my thinking. But they're similar. Like the emotions you think, and then the emotions get activated, your emotions get activated, and then the thinking gets activated. It's a very similar thing. But there was a knowing when that was talked about, that there was something really beautiful about what was happening. And I think that happens to all of us on this spiritual search, that we hear these words, like we hear something said, just a tiny thing, like knowledge is infinite. Like you are infinite, life is infinite, this is it. The answers are here, the answers are known. That this is mystery, this is magic. I think all of us have at some point resonated with that, and we thought it was us resonating with us. We thought that we were having an experience and it belonged to us and that we remembered something. But actually, there was a remembering beyond you. Something was touched beyond you, beyond the character. And the character wants to know how to get back to that. The personality structure wants to be able to stick its flag in the present moment, to be able to always be here, or to find that magic. It knows it, and it's always looking for it. And it thinks that it will find it in a person, in falling in love. Like falling in love feels very magical. That's a very intimate experience. And it thinks, if I fall in love, if I find a better teacher, if I find a better meditation practice, I find more money or more safety, I will be able to ignite that magic. I'll be able to relax into that magic. I'll be able to stop looking. But it doesn't happen like that. You don't get to own this magic. If you did, then magic would be limited. If you could grab hold of magic, if you could own it, if you could have it, then magic would be a limited thing. Your essence would be a limited thing. The fact that you can't have it means that it's infinite, that it's unobtainable, it's not a thing. And if it's not a thing, it's also everything, which is really wonderful. I know the person's like, yeah, but I would rather just be able to own it and open the box and have it when I want it, and then close the box when I don't want it. But it's really, that's not what you want. You don't want to own everything. That would be very stressful if you had to own and look after everything. If you could own this and have presence. You don't want that. What you want is to stop seeking, actually. You just want to be here now. That's truly deeply what you want when you really investigate what it is you're looking for. Everything you're looking for is about being able to relax into now, like learn to meditate, to relax into now. I get enough money and I can relax now. I get home and I can relax now. The Swamis though, so the Swami I met today, he doesn't get that. He doesn't finally get a big donation in a house. He's not allowed to own things. Like that's his vows, is that he doesn't get to own any of it. He has to live right on the edge of life in that exciting place where life provides. Life gives. I'm not saying that we all have to become swamis, but I'm just suggesting a different way, that maybe arrival never happens. And if it's never going to happen, arrival, then maybe it's a concept that you need to let go of. And maybe it's a concept that's always made you feel like you're lacking something, like you're missing something. And maybe arrival isn't the answer. That this waiting to arrive, waiting to achieve. It can be, on the human level, it can be very healing to use the idea of arrival sometimes. But that's another story. If somebody has a problem, then I might encourage them actually to think about arrival. It depends on who I'm working with. But on the absolute level, you aren't going to arrive at consciousness, you are it. I'm pointing to non-duality now, not healing the person. And sometimes the person needs carrots or needs hope or needs the idea of arrival to settle. But on the absolute level, you don't get to arrive. You're not going to make it to the absolute. Your suffering has always been that you've been seeking for something other than what's happening. I assure you, the Buddhists say this in the teaching of craving. So when I studied Buddhism, what they taught me was that suffering was craving. They didn't actually ever teach me that suffering was the illusion of self. They taught me it was, all suffering came from craving. And what craving was the belief that pleasure would satisfy you and pain will take from you. And that you're lost in this cycle of seeking for pleasure and avoidance of pain. This was the teaching that, maybe there were higher teachings that they would have taught me, but after 5 years I quit Buddhism, so I never got to the higher teachings. I was like, I'm off to non-duality. But that was what they really taught, that you suffer because you seek. And seeking isn't stopping the movement towards pleasure, it's the craving, the belief that you will find consciousness, that you will find this moment, what you look for in pleasure, in a future event, in avoiding a past event. That you will get there. And this isn't true. You could never arrive there. You always have it. So let's look more closely at what consciousness is, what your essence is. So do you ever experience a time where you're not conscious? Do you ever experience not being conscious? I don't mean conscious as in conscious of your personal dynamics and being conscious of this moment. I don't mean personal attention. I'm not talking about personal awareness. I'm talking about that consciousness that disappears if you go to the doctor and they do an operation on you and they give you an injection and you get knocked out. Do you ever experience life without consciousness? Is life ever separate from consciousness? What your mind does is your mind says, yes, when I'm in deep sleep or when I go to the doctors and they knock me out, I experience without consciousness, but that's not true. There is no experience in deep sleep. There is no life in deep sleep. So I'm asking you if you ever experience life without consciousness. Is life ever separate from consciousness? It's impossible. Like, how would you experience life if there wasn't consciousness? That's totally impossible. There always has to be consciousness when there is life. Life and consciousness are the same. So the next question is are things arising in your consciousness or out of your consciousness? So right now, am I appearing in consciousness or out of consciousness? Is my voice appearing in consciousness or out of consciousness? So you're conscious of me, right? So therefore, I'm appearing in your consciousness. So then the next question is does consciousness ever begin or end? So did your consciousness end in the cafe? So say if you're in the cafe before you came here, did it end in the cafe and then a new consciousness begin now? Or is there only ever one consciousness? One moment? So that consciousness is the same consciousness when you were born, when you were 1, when you were 10, when you got told off, when you were happy, when you were excited, when you were 20, 30, 40. It's the same one consciousness. It never ends. It's always still, and everything is appearing and disappearing in it. So let's ask more questions along this line. So does consciousness ever move? So it never actually really moves, yet all things are moving in consciousness. It feels like consciousness is moving, it feels like your body's moving, and you think the consciousness is attached to your body. But consciousness is always still in everything. But everything, which is also consciousness, is moving in consciousness. So when the Buddhists say, or when teachers say that your nature is stillness and movement, or your nature is stillness sometimes, it depends how they're pointing. They're pointing to that consciousness. And it's your own experience. It's what's looking out of your eyes now. It's what's appearing as everything in this room. And you never lost it. Consciousness never ages. The body ages, the person ages. Things age, things change. But consciousness never ages. It never accepts or rejects anything. It never has any opinion. It just loves. It just accepts. I say it doesn't accept or not accept anything. What I mean is it doesn't judge anything. But it's there, loving everything that's appearing. This is who you are, this consciousness. This consciousness is no thing, not a thing, and everything. It's happening right now. It never starts and it never ends. It's ageless, and it's who you are. It's what's listening to me now. The body doesn't listen to me. The body is like a microphone. It's like an instrument that consciousness is using in order to create sound. But the body isn't alive. Your character isn't alive. Your character isn't dead and the body isn't dead either, but they're not alive or dead. They're just not experiencing. What's experiencing is consciousness. What hears my voice is consciousness. It's this stillness that's piercing everything. It's looking out of your eyes now. It is all objects now, and all objects are moving in it. It's this stillness and this movement. And it never went through time. Time is appearing and disappearing in it. It's love. So right now, love is looking at you. Consciousness is looking at you. And love is Love is looking at me. It's the same. This is what's been forgotten in the human form. This isn't meant to negate the personality structure. The personality structure is beautiful. Every part of the human level is beautiful. Your apparent awakening process is beautiful. Every part of you, your suffering, your hells, your heavens, is absolutely divine expression of this. It's not meaning any negation, but it's questioning your fundamental idea of separation. You aren't separate. Your essence isn't separate. The person appears to be separate. The objects appear to be separate, but your essence isn't separate. And this is what's been forgotten in most of humanity. But I have a very beautiful feeling that it's becoming more and more known. When there's the identification with the personality structure, lots of difficulties rise in that person's life because they always feel cut off from their limitless nature. So they always feel they lost something. But then they look for their limitless nature in a limitation, in money, in people, in friends, in experiences, in feelings, in emotions, in thoughts. And you will never find your limitless nature in a thing. That's why when we go back to the Buddhist teachings about craving, they say it's the end of seeking, the end of the belief that pleasure will bring you your limitless nature, and pain, the avoidance of pain, will stop you losing your limitless nature. Your limitless nature can only ever be found now in what's happening in your essence, which is here and ever present, and never is born and never dies. So that's non-duality. my best way of expressing it. Well, I don't know if this is the best way, but my best way in this moment of expressing it. So you are very welcome to ask anything you like about non-duality or about the personal self, and I have a microphone here for you so you don't have to shout. You don't have to use that either. I like it, the microphone. It makes it nice and easy for me. So you're welcome to ask anything, and you're also welcome to just sit in silence with me. Yes? Could you just pass the microphone along? Thanks. Just there. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. You just have to switch it on, I think.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I think so.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's my first day here. I just came yesterday to Rishikesh and I found out you were here and I was very happy. So I'm very happy to be here and listen
welcome.
to your talk. I just got a question about love, because even though love is looking at us and we are pure conscious, we know that everything is happening just like a film going on. Why is this always this feeling of seeking for love?
Because that's what you feel. Love is limitlessness to me. Like love is unconditioned love, which is our essence, and I think that's what everyone's seeking for, is this infinite possibilities. It's the end of any limitation. It's your nature, and that's what you deeply desire when you separate. You deeply desire that infinite possibilities, that wonder, that childlikeness. And so therefore you look for it in things, and that's the illusion that has to be broken, that love is your essence. It's not in a thing. And it becomes a psychological pattern in the body. Like your body adapts to that behavior. Like, so you feel like you lost your love, you lost your essence, and then it teaches itself behaviors to look for love. So it teaches itself to look for attention, say, if that's what it wants. Like look for attention from others. And it feels like if it doesn't receive attention, if it doesn't feel listened to, it feels like it's lost love. And these are all what manifests in the personality structure. Once it feels it's lost love, then it develops these patterns of being. And it depends on the way your parents were, and it depends on how you're conditioned and your genetics as to your particular seeking patterns. And you never will find a solution to it. You're never going to arrive at love. The essence is love. Everything you look for is love. But this is why you have to work, or there has to be working on the personality structure, because when you're seeking for love, so when you feel lack, that's very hard to hear that this moment has no lack. But it's something that pulses, so you sometimes feel more contracted, and when you feel more contracted, you feel more absent of love. The smaller you feel, the more absent of love, the more you feel there's something wrong and there's something missing, and then the more you seek. When you feel more expanded, and it's an energetic thing, when you feel more open and more expanded and more happy, there is not so much seeking, and you don't feel like you've lost love. So then when you feel more open and expanded, you can hear this more. There's a vibration with this, that you are complete. And this is why working on the personal self and singing and prayer and meditation arises, because it's all about balancing that. It's not that person arises at it, that person can't. It's that person blocks it. When you're deeply contracted in yourself, you're deeply suffering, you feel very absent from love. And throughout the day it changes, and sometimes things can trigger you, so you can be in a really good mood, and then somebody speaks to you in a really harsh matter, and you have an emotional pain, and then you get triggered, and then you become small and limited, and then you seek to feel unlimited. It's a game that's appearing in humans. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. And feel free to express yourself in this room in any way you want. If you feel like you want to sleep and lay down and relax, that's great. Because the body deeply relaxing. Like if you just want to lay down because you feel more comfortable, you don't have to sit up in any position. I used to often fall asleep when my teachers were speaking to me. The Buddhists used to say I had sloth and torpor, and once when I used to go to these particular retreats, I could even fall asleep while meditating. I was quite good at it. I could stay in meditation position and fall asleep, and then they would catch me, and they would make me go and put my head in a bucket of ice water. And they'd say, yeah, I have sloth and torpor. And I'd be like, yes, 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 let me meditate, and then I can fall asleep again. But I don't see it as any blockage. I used to do it, and I think it was very healthy. My body was just deeply relaxing. And if that's what your karma's got to be, even if I had sloth and torpor, I just felt like my body would stop doing it when it was ready. But I was also happy when they made me do that too. I was like, okay, we try this as well. You get to the place where you're just humbled and you're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. If I should stick my head in the bottle of cold water or sleep, I'll try both. Just put my odds on both sides. I'll place bets on both ones. Hi. Do you want the microphone or are you happy?
No. Just what is non-duality again?
Yeah! Thank you for asking. I love talking about non-duality. I just get a tissue before I start. Well, non-duality. So just let me ask a little bit about you, if you don't mind, just so I can gauge like what language you're used to. So are you used to these types of satsangs? Are you used to people speaking like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can just go for it in my language. I thought if you were totally new, I would.
No.
Okay. So. So on the most simplest terms, this is non-duality. This expression right now. But as I get less simple and more complex, but this complexity to explain might seem more simple to the brain because it's too easy just to say this is non-duality. Mind's like, how can this be non-duality? I'm sitting here and there's other people there. But that's something you've actually been taught. That wasn't your basic experience when you were born, that you're a baby inside the body. When you were born, you didn't think I'm a baby inside the body or I'm a human inside the body. You were just awake. There was this awake presence. You didn't have any sense of your hands or the cot or being in relationship to anything. There wasn't any relationship when you were born. There was just what you were, which was everything. You didn't know you were a baby in relationship to the world. There was no difference between your looking and the looked at. So when you were a baby and you laid on your back and you looked up at the ceiling, you didn't know you were looking up at a ceiling. You didn't think, I'm looking up at a ceiling now and I'm in my cot. So because you didn't know that, that wasn't your experience. That thought process actually gives you an energetic experience of being inside the body. You put a limit on yourself. And it really is an energetical experience, non-duality. Like as a baby, you were limitless. There was no edge to your looking at the ceiling and the ceiling. The looking and the ceiling were the same. The hearing of your mother and your mother's sound were the same. You didn't know my mother is inside of me or outside of me. You didn't know these words, and without these words, your essence was always limitless. In the very moment, in the very direct experience, the sound of your mother and your mother were the same to the baby. You were innocent. You had no knowledge, and it's knowledge which creates the experience of separation. And it's an energetic experience. That knowledge becomes energetical. It's not just knowledge. If it was just knowledge, you wouldn't feel separate. Because you can have complicated thinking and not feel separate, I assure you. But that knowledge becomes an energetic experience. So the baby at a certain age begins to think, I'm a baby. Well, it doesn't think I'm a baby, it thinks it's a name. So the mother keeps saying, you're John, 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 John. And the baby begins to feel like it's somebody inside the baby, in the body, in relationship to the mother. But a direct experience after birth, or even prior to birth, but we just talk about from birth, is that you're limitlessness, that you are no thing and everything, that you're not something that's definable, you are not a thing. That's always been your experience. It was language, the learning of language, the development of the brain, which began to make you feel separate. Non-duality is the remembering of this. And the ironic thing of it, even though I'm saying all these words, the remembering of it is wordless and right here. It's beyond words. It's really ironic that I'm using all these words, but let's look at this very experience of me speaking. My words are going, 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 gone, gone, gone. But there's something else that remains. There's present. My words cannot be it. Because as soon as I say they're beautiful sound, they're gone. They do not exist anymore. But yet existence is still here. Existence is right here. And this is non-duality. Non-duality is what's always here. It's beyond your thought. What happens in the human is we identify with thought, with feeling, with the body, with experiences, with past and future, and that's who we become. We become only this person, and that's all we can see. That's why speaking about non-duality is not difficult, but communicating it to others is difficult because you're looking for something more complicated. You're looking for something that you can hold on to, but watch, my words are gone, gone, gone. They've disappeared. What remains? What remains? And what always remains, what's always here is life. Our life is here. And life is consciousness, life is love. This is your essence. This is who you are, this moment, the intimacy of this moment. And in this moment, there isn't this or that. There isn't right or wrong. There isn't good or bad. There isn't past or future. There is just this. Even my words are disappearing really before they're even completed. My words are almost in a way a figment of your imagination. Like you're completing it. They're sounds in the instant. And your brain, your imagination is completing my sounds and turning them into meaning and turning them into something which is beautiful. And then you think that the answer to non-duality is in that something, is in the end of my words, is in understanding. But what else is here? They're gone. My words are gone. Your whole life is gone. Everything you've ever known is gone. Your family's gone. Your friendships are gone. Your problems are gone. Your feelings are gone. Your knowledge is gone. What else is here? What else is here? So this is non-duality. Non-duality is this instant. And this is where you find the truth to your existence. You can't find the truth to your existence in anything that anyone tells you, in any feeling, in anything that comes and goes. I know the mind keeps trying to get that and grasp onto that, but what else is here? The mind comes and goes, the feelings come and go, the problems come and go, the objects come and go, the body comes and goes. Life is here. And at first maybe this becomes an intellectual understanding, but then eventually it just is a energetic dropping into what you are. Like a shift from being something that's always moving in time to this timelessness. And then the character arises and disappears in this timelessness. And it's a beautiful expression, it doesn't need to be ignored, but it's not the reality, it's an appearance. The reality is life, which is this, which is consciousness, which is here. And the character is something that's appearing and disappearing and changing and evolving and growing and expanding and learning new things. Knowledge and that person is an infinite expression. So in these talks, like part of my job is pointing back to who you are, and that's like this energetic resonance. So you're actually, maybe at first you're intellectually understanding me, but then also there's this other part, this resonance that's beaming with this. It's like, yes, 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 there's a knowing of this. There's something beyond you. And then the other part of what I do is explaining it in time, so I'm making sense to your intellect, and I'm also helping settle down your emotional disbalances. Your emotional disbalances pull you into thinking and pull you into problems and pull you into what's not here. So I help you on those levels too. The resonance is an energetic thing. And you can also have that in life, like you can see a sunset and suddenly there's an energetic resonance, there's a remembering of your mystery, this limitlessness, this expandedness, this wonder. If I shut my eyes, just shout out if you want to ask something. I'm just resting the eyes. if anyone has any questions, we have time. And whatever you like, if you feel like sitting in silence or asking something, you're very welcome both ways. So we begin to come to the end. It's the first time. Oh, you, no. That's super funny. It's the first time I've done a session in a long time where the whole audience has been quiet. No questions.
It's all about being present.
Yeah.
Duality is just being present.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's beautiful. So thank you very much. You're very welcome the last 2 days. And we also have a donation box by the door. It's not for us, it's actually for the room and for the work they do here. So if you feel like donating, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. Lots of love.